Nobody likes to admit it, but the world doesn't react to who you are. It reacts to who you appear to be. And the sooner you understand this, the less time you waste being ignored, disrespected, or underestimated. There's a comfortable belief that competence, effort, and character speak for themselves. They don't, at least not at first. Machiavelli already knew this. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals. Before any proof, before any result, the judgment has already happened. And it almost always happens against you. Perhaps you've experienced this firsthand. People who know less, do less, and deliver less are treated with more respect, more credit, and more opportunities. Meanwhile, you who strive are left waiting for recognition that never comes. This isn't bad luck. It's not cosmic injustice. It's a primitive understanding of power. The end justifies the means when the game is about social survival. Whoever understands the signs controls the table. Whoever ignores them becomes a pawn. The good news, and here's the counterintuitive point, is that you don't need to wait to have power to be treated as someone powerful. You need to learn how to signal. Appearance of virtue, calculated use of force, strategic silence, posture, rhythm, choices. Small adjustments that make the world change its behavior even before your reality changes. In this video, you'll see the invisible mechanism that governs respect, money, and influence, and more importantly, how to use it without losing control of the game. If something inside you awakened while listening, don't ignore that feeling. This channel isn't about videos, it's about memories. Remember who you were before the fear, before the exhaustion, before the silence. Each new video here is a different reflection of your own soul, an invitation to understand what the world never taught you. The power you seek outside has always been within you. If you feel that this journey speaks to what lives silently within you, sign up now, not to follow yet another creator, but to reconnect with something the world tried to make you forget. Because here, every word was made to heal, each reflection to awaken, and each video serves as a reminder. You are not alone on the path back to yourself. Click on subscribe and turn the algorithm into a daily reminder of who you really are. There's an uncomfortable truth that almost no one likes to face. Human beings judge before listening, before understanding, and often even before realizing they've judged. In less than a second, the other person's brain has already placed you in an invisible box. This isn't conscious malice, it's pure biology, decisions based on real human nature. While some insist on believing that the world functions through merit and intention, reality follows a policy guided by reality, not by ideals. The human gaze seeks signs of power, stability, and control because, deep down, this meant survival. Machiavelli understood this centuries ago. Whoever ignores this mechanism becomes its hostage. The problem is that most people enter social environments thinking they will be judged by what they say, when, in practice, they have already been sentenced by what they transmit. Appearance of virtue, posture, rhythm, and presence speak louder than any logical argument. The end justifies the means here not as cynicism, but as a cold reading of the game. Before the first word, the verdict has already been given, and almost no one prepares for it. Observe someone entering an important room, a meeting, an interview, a social event, or even a simple restaurant. Before even sitting down, their body language has already told a whole story. Drooping shoulders, overly hurried steps, a gaze pleading for approval. All of this screams scarcity. And the curious thing is that no one needs to be cruel to react. Contempt arises almost automatically. That's why Machiavelli warned that it's better to be feared than loved, as long as one knows how to avoid being hated. The fear here isn't explicit dread, but silent respect. That feeling of, this person doesn't need to prove anything. Whoever masters this understands the calculated use of force, and force, in this context, begins with controlling one's own body. A practical example: a slower pace when walking, comfortable silence before responding, firm eye contact without challenge. Small adjustments that reprogram the other person's instinctive reading. Virtù and fortuna meet precisely there. You don't control the judgment of others, but you control the signals you give off. The common mistake is believing that justice will come later, that when people get to know me better, everything will change. It rarely does. The first impression leaves a trail that's hard to erase. That's why powerful people invest so much in visual cues, posture and presence, even when they already have results. They know that their own loyal armies begin in the minds of others. It's not about vanity, but about strategy. Ignoring this human instinct is like entering a game without knowing the rules. Constant adaptability isn't about changing who you are, but about adjusting how you are perceived. And here's the point that almost no one connects. If judgment is so quick, then the problem isn't just with you, but with the invisible signals you carry. Signals that go far beyond the body and begin to infiltrate other details of daily life. Details that seem small, but reveal everything even before the eye is drawn. There's something no one teaches, but everyone feels. Poverty sends signals. It's not just a lack of money. It's a lack of space, of breathing room, of choice. Human beings sense this in the air, almost like an animal instinct. Not because it's bad, but because the brain associates scarcity with risk, and risk repels. Machiavelli never romanticized this. He knew that the world doesn't react to intention, it reacts to interpretation. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals. When someone conveys that they need too much, that they depend too much, that they're always hanging by a thread, perception changes. Respect slips through your fingers before the conversation even begins. The end justifies the means. Here appears as social survival. Those who ignore how they are perceived end up being treated as disposable. Poverty, when visible, doesn't generate lasting compassion. It generates impatience, and that hurts to hear, but it explains a lot that people pretend not to understand. Notice how treatment changes when someone seems to have options. The tone of voice softens, personal space is respected, doors seem less heavy. It's not magic, it's a reading of power. Better to be feared than loved doesn't mean arrogance, but visible autonomy. Paradoxically, those who seem to need less receive more. Banks, partners, opportunities follow this cold logic. Avoiding being hated, in this case, means not exposing chronic fragility. The appearance of virtue also includes the appearance of stability. A practical example: basic organization already changes the game. Clean and well-fitting clothes, even simple ones, neat hair, a minimally structured schedule. It's not luxury, it's a sign. Virtù is mastering these details. Fortune is the collateral effect that comes after. Whoever thinks this is superficial still hasn't understood how the world really works. The problem is that many confuse dignity with total transparency. They go around displaying difficulties, venting to those who have no commitment whatsoever. This doesn't generate support, it generates a label. Machiavelli would call this a strategic error. Calculated use of force also means calculated use of vulnerability. Your own loyal armies aren't built by asking just anyone for help. Decisions based on real human nature require emotional detachment. If poverty is a smell, then the first step isn't to feign wealth, but to reduce the signs of desperation. Constant adaptability involves understanding that perception precedes reality, and when these signs escape behavior and begin to manifest in objects, habits, and even small daily choices, the reading becomes even more brutal and almost impossible to hide. There's a paradox that irritates, confuses, and yet governs the financial world. Money flows to those who appear not to need it. It's not fair, It's not moral, but it's real. Institutions, people, and opportunities are attracted by apparent stability, not explicit urgency. Machiavelli would understand this as politics guided by reality, not by ideals. Desperation generates noise, and noise is frightening. Those who ask for too much signal weakness. Those who negotiate calmly signal power. The end justifies the means. Here manifests itself coldly. It doesn't matter how much someone deserves credit, but how capable they seem of repaying it effortlessly. Decisions based on real human nature follow this silent logic. The bank doesn't lend money, it buys security. And security never comes from those who are suffocating. Observe how someone enters a negotiation when they urgently need to close a deal. Their voice quickens, their speech lengthens, and justifications pile up. All of this betrays scarcity. In this scenario, being feared rather than loved means being respected as someone who can leave the table at any moment. Avoiding being hated means not begging. The appearance of virtue here translates into self-control. A practical example, when seeking credit, those who present reserves, alternatives, and a concise plan generate more trust than those who expose dramas. Virtù is mastering the narrative. Fortuna is the credit released afterward. Intelligent people understand that you don't ask for money, you signal viability. The calculated use of force is knowing when to be silent, when to pause, and when to let silence work in your favor. The fatal mistake many make is believing that absolute sincerity convinces cold systems. It doesn't. Systems respond to signals, not emotional stories. In the financial world, loyal armies are assets, reserves, solid relationships, and reputation. Constant adaptability requires learning to appear solid even before being comfortable. This isn't lying, it's strategy. Feigning stability while building structure is a classic survival tactic. Machiavelli would call this practical intelligence, not hypocrisy. And when this paradox begins to repeat itself, money always going to those who least ask for it, it becomes clear that it's not just behavior that gives everything away. The objects around you, your digital habits, small visual oversights, all begin to reveal what your mouth tries to hide. Few things reveal as much as what a person carries in their hand every day. The cell phone has become an extension of the body, and without realizing it, has also become a billboard of one's inner state. Cracked screen, dirty case, uncontrolled notifications, battery always in the red. None of this is merely aesthetic, it's a signal. The human brain reads these details as disorganization, scarcity, and lack of control. Machiavelli would never ignore this. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals. The end justifies the means when it is understood that small symbols build great judgments. No one consciously thinks this person is poor because their cell phone is broken, but the feeling arises. Decisions based on real human nature don't ask permission to happen. They simply happen. The curious thing is that many people invest hours trying to appear confident in their speech, but neglect the silent signals. Better to be feared than loved in this context is to be perceived as someone who respects themselves. Avoiding being hated begins with not presenting oneself as someone who has abandoned their own territory. The appearance of virtue also resides in caring for what is visible. A practical and simple example: if you can't replace the device, replace the screen. If you can't replace the screen, use a clean screen protector. Organize applications. Silence useless notifications. Virtù is not ostentation, it is mastery. The calculated use of force is understanding that order communicates power even in silence. Whoever takes care of what is small signals that they take care of what is great. The common mistake is thinking this is superficiality. It's not. It's pattern recognition. Your own loyal armies begin with the invisible respect you inspire. Constant adaptability means adjusting signals before they work against you. A neglected cell phone doesn't scream lack of money, it whispers normalized defeat, and the world reacts to this by pushing away opportunities, not offering help. Machiavelli would understand this as aesthetic self-sabotage, and when these signals accumulate, in the cell phone, in the clothes, in the gestures, just one negative detail is enough to contaminate the entire perception. Just one. And that's exactly where the game gets even crueler. There is a silent and devastating psychological phenomenon. A single negative detail has the power to contaminate everything else. It's the horn effect in action. A dirty shoe, a wrinkled shirt, a neglected tooth, and suddenly a person's intelligence is questioned, even if they are brilliant. This isn't fair, but it's real. Politics guided by reality, not ideals. The human brain saves energy by creating shortcuts. If one detail is out of place, the rest falls under suspicion. Machiavelli understood this mechanism intuitively. The end justifies the means when one realizes that, to be heard, one must first be visually accepted. Decisions based on real human nature don't evaluate resumes, they evaluate coherence between signals. The cruelest part is that the effect is immediate and almost irreversible. Better to be feared than loved here means being respected even before opening your mouth. Avoiding being hated involves not provoking gratuitous aesthetic rejection. An appearance of virtue is not vanity, it's shielding. A practical example: always clean shoes, even simple ones. Neutral, well-fitting clothes, impeccable hygiene. None of this requires wealth, it requires discipline. Virtue is about eliminating noise. Calculated use of force means understanding that the other person's brain is looking for any excuse to classify you, positively or negatively. Those who master the details don't need to explain themselves later. The mistake many make is trying to compensate for visual flaws with excessive talking. This only makes things worse. Your own loyal armies aren't built by justifying carelessness. Constant adaptability demands brutal awareness. If a single negative detail can destroy everything, then the strategy isn't to shine, it's to avoid failure. Machiavelli would call this defensive intelligence. It's not about appearing perfect, but about not giving ammunition to others' judgment. And when a person begins to realize this, they understand that it's not just physical appearance that reveals submission. There's something even deeper, more invisible, a look, an inner posture that separates those who ask permission to exist from those who simply occupy space. There is a stark difference between two types of gaze: the gaze of someone asking for permission and the gaze of someone occupying space. The first is anxious, quick, full of invisible micro-requests. The second is calm, firm, economical. The world responds radically differently to each of them. Machiavelli would never ignore this. He knew that decisions based on real human nature begin with the non-verbal. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals. Whoever looks like a servant already places themselves below even before any formal hierarchy exists. And the most tragic thing is that this happens unconsciously. The end justifies the means here, means understanding that if you present yourself as lesser, you will be treated as lesser, without revolt, without guilt, simply as a logical consequence. The servant's gaze constantly seeks approval. With their eyes they ask, "Can I be here? Am I doing well? Do you agree with me?" This silently erodes authority. Better to be feared than loved in this context is to be perceived as someone who doesn't need external validation to exist. Avoiding being hated means not submissively vying for attention. The appearance of virtue is also manifested in the gaze. Fewer nervous blinks, more pauses, less automatic reaction. A practical example: when conversing, hold eye contact for a second longer before responding. Don't lower your eyes when disagreeing. Don't smile automatically to relieve tension. Virtue is emotional self-control applied to the body. Calculated use of force is understanding that silent firmness weighs more than noisy enthusiasm. The common mistake is thinking that humility requires submission. It doesn't. Self-made, loyal armies don't follow those who ask permission to lead. Constant adaptability involves re-educating oneself not to apologize for existing. Machiavelli would call this a minimal sovereign posture. It's not arrogance, it's internal alignment. When someone adjusts their perspective, they adjust how the world responds. And the most curious thing is that this perspective rarely comes alone. It's usually reinforced or sabotaged by the people around you. Because, like it or not, the world doesn't see you in isolation. It sees you as part of a group. There's a silent law that almost no one verbalizes, but everyone applies. No one is judged alone. Human beings are read collectively. People don't just observe you for what you do, but for who is around you when you do it. Machiavelli understood this with surgical clarity. Your own loyal armies aren't just military, they're symbolic. Politics should be guided by reality, not ideals. If your circle transmits disorganization, scarcity, immaturity, or stagnation, it drips onto you like ink on wet paper. The end justifies the means here isn't about abandoning people, but about understanding that collective perception shapes individual destiny. Decisions based on real human nature don't separate the individual from the group. They merge the two. Notice how leaders, entrepreneurs, and respected figures carefully choose where they appear and with whom they are seen. In this scenario, it's better to be feared than loved, to be associated with competence, not collective emotional neediness. Avoiding being hated means not mixing with environments that drain energy and reputation. An appearance of virtue also includes virtue borrowed from the group. A practical example, frequent environments where the average behavior is higher, professional events, well-maintained gyms, study circles, mentorship programs. Books also count as symbolic company. Those who read certain authors carry their influence. Virtue is social curation. The calculated use of force is choosing silence and strategic solitude when the group pulls you down. The common mistake is confusing loyalty with self-abandonment. You don't build your own loyal armies by sinking along with them. Constant adaptability requires the courage to change environments before the environment defines you. Machiavelli would never romanticize bad company. He knew that a prince is judged by his surroundings, and when a person begins to adjust this visual drag, they realize something unsettling. It's not just who you associate with who defines you, but how you physically behave within those environments. Because the body also speaks and sometimes screams scarcity in a way that not even the strongest circle can compensate for. There's a cruel irony in human behavior. The less internal sense of power one feels, the greater the need to fill space with noise. A voice that's too loud, exaggerated laughter, broad gestures, a rush to speak. This isn't an expansive personality. It's scarcity trying to mask itself. Machiavelli would observe this with surgical precision. Politics guided by reality, not ideals. The body reveals what the mind tries to hide. Decisions based on real human nature interpret volume as insecurity. The end justifies the means. Here means understanding that controlled silence communicates more power than 1,000 words. Those who talk too much try to convince. Those who control their own bodies don't need to ask for attention. Better to be feared than loved in this context is to be perceived as someone who doesn't compete for attention. Avoiding being hated involves not anxiously invading others' space. An appearance of virtue also means economy of movement. A practical example, reducing gestures, pausing before responding, deliberately lowering the tone of voice, speaking less and more slowly. Virtue is mastery of impulse. Calculated use of force means knowing that presence weighs more than performance. Observe truly respected figures. They don't compete for microphones, they don't interrupt, they don't over-explain. Their bodies communicate abundance before any argument. The common mistake is thinking that enthusiasm generates respect. It doesn't. Loyal and dedicated armies follow those who project confidence, not those who demand validation through loud noise. Constant adaptability requires reprogramming the body for strategic calm. Machiavelli would call this sovereign self-control. When the noise decreases, something curious happens. The environment adjusts to your rhythm. And it's at this point that many begin to realize that feigning control at certain times isn't a lie, it's an investment. Because before reality changes, the signaling needs to change first. There's a moral misconception that keeps many people trapped. The idea that you can only signal what you already are. The real world doesn't work that way. First comes the signal, then the confirmation. Machiavelli knew this better than most. Politics is guided by reality, not ideals. In this context, pretending isn't deceiving, it's anticipating. Decisions based on real human nature reward those who demonstrate control before fully possessing it. The end justifies the means. Here appears as pragmatism. If you wait to be ready to act like someone prepared, you'll never get anywhere. The human brain responds to investment signals, not future promises. Those who present themselves as under construction are treated as beginners. Those who present themselves as operational are treated as such. Better to be feared than loved here means being taken seriously before external validation. Avoiding being hated means not exaggerating the performance. An appearance of virtue demands a minimum of coherence between what is shown and what is maintained. A practical example: dressing for the level you aspire to, not your current level. Organizing your routine as if you already have greater responsibilities. Talking about projects in progress, not vague dreams. Reading authors who shape strategic vision, Machiavelli, Napoleon Hill, Sun Tzu, and incorporating their language naturally. Virtue is acting as if you already understand the game. Calculated use of force is knowing that the world only bets on those who seem to already be betting on themselves. The fatal mistake is confusing this with fraud. Proper and loyal armies don't follow imposters, but leaders in training. Constant adaptability requires assuming an identity before it's complete. Machiavelli would call this the premature occupation of the throne. You don't lie to the world. You teach the world to treat you according to the position you're building. And when this signaling starts to work, the next layer of the game emerges. It's not enough to signal investment. You need to understand how to manipulate the primitive mechanism of perception so that reality actually begins to bend. There comes a point where understanding the game isn't enough. You have to operate it. The primitive mechanism of perception doesn't negotiate with good intentions. It responds to clear signals. Machiavelli treated this as social engineering applied to power. Politics guided by reality, not ideals. Those who learn to hack this mechanism stop asking for permission and start shaping the environment. The end justifies the means here emerges as precision. It's not about deceiving people. It's about aligning stimuli with what the human brain already does on its own. Decisions based on real human nature follow repeated patterns: posture, rhythm, silence, consistency. When these signals align, perception changes before material reality changes. And when perception changes, doors begin to open without apparent explanation. The prince's mask is not fantasy, it's function. Better to be feared than loved at this stage is to be predictable in firmness and unpredictable in concession. Avoiding being hated means not abusing theatrics. Appearance of virtue here means aesthetic and behavioral consistency over time. A practical example: Define 3 visible and sustainable pillars: clean and consistent appearance, short and safe communication, agenda with clear priorities. Repeat this until it becomes your signature. Virtù is disciplined repetition. Fortuna is the accumulated effect of this constancy. Calculated use of force is knowing when to enter, when to exit, and when not to appear. Absence also communicates power. The common mistake is thinking that the mask replaces the content. It doesn't. It buys time. Your own loyal armies are formed while the real structure is built behind the scenes. Constant adaptability requires calibrating signals as the environment changes. Machiavelli would never advocate blind rigidity. The prince's mask adjusts without breaking. And when a person learns this, they realize something unsettling. Authenticity without authority becomes a public confession of weakness. Because without a power base, being yourself becomes just another plea for understanding. There's a comfortable lie that has spread like a modern mantra. Be yourself, and the world will accept you. It won't. At least, not in the way they promised. Machiavelli would never fall for that fantasy. Politics should be guided by reality, not ideals. Authenticity without a power base is not a virtue. It's exposure. Decisions based on real human nature don't reward those who reveal themselves raw, but those who reveal themselves as relevant. The end justifies the means here appears as maturity. First build a position, then reveal your essence. When someone shows themselves to be fragile and lacking authority, the world doesn't protect them, it classifies them. And it almost always classifies them downwards. Better to be feared than loved, in this sense, means being respected before being understood. Avoiding being hated means not unloading inner truths in environments that have no commitment to you. The appearance of virtue requires filtering. A practical example. In professional environments, talk about limits, not traumas, about processes, not pain, about decisions, not existential doubts. Virtù is knowing what to show and when to show it. Calculated use of strength is keeping parts of yourself until they can be read as depth and not as weakness. Powerful people choose to whom they grant emotional access. This is not coldness, it's strategy. The common mistake is confusing authenticity with absolute spontaneity. One's own loyal armies don't form around someone who is overly emotionally exposed. Constant adaptability requires understanding that authority comes before public vulnerability. Machiavelli would call this the hierarchy of revelation. When someone builds a position, their authenticity becomes charisma. Without a position, it becomes a plea for acceptance. And when this becomes clear, an inevitable question arises. If authority changes how your truth is received, what happens when you test this in environments where concrete decisions are made, such as banks, institutions, and power centers? There's a simple thought experiment that reveals more about the world than 1,000 motivational speeches. Imagine 2 people asking for credit. One arrives tense, full of justifications, speaking quickly, explaining why they need the money. The other arrives calm, objective, speaks little, and makes it clear they have alternatives. Who do you think receives real attention? Machiavelli never had any doubts. Politics should be guided by reality, not ideals. Banks, investors, and institutions don't help those in need. They help those who seem to choose. Decisions based on real human nature follow a risk assessment, not empathy. The end justifies, the means here is brutal. Necessity drives people away, margin attracts. In this environment, it's better to be feared than loved, meaning being respected as someone who can leave the table. Avoiding being hated means not emotionally pressuring the decision-maker. An appearance of virtue in banking is characterized by restrained language, a relaxed posture, and concise speech. A practical example? Never apply for credit without minimum reserves, even if symbolic. Bring alternatives even if you don't intend to use them. Talk about strategy, not urgency. Virtue is narrative control. Calculated use of force means making it clear that credit is a lever, not a lifeline. Those who ask for help receive crumbs. Those who offer partnership receive open coffers. The fatal mistake is thinking that emotional honesty improves negotiation. It doesn't. In this context, having your own loyal armies is about assets, history, and posture. Constant adaptability requires understanding that abundance begins as a signal before it becomes a balance. Machiavelli would call this anticipating status. When a person passes this invisible test, something changes. Doors open without a clear, rational explanation. And then, an even more sensitive layer of the game emerges, because to maintain this position, it's not enough to appear strong occasionally. You need to master the art of appearing strong when you're weak, and calm when everything inside is collapsing. There is a fine and poorly understood line between strategic dissimulation and moral hypocrisy. Most reject the former because they confuse it with the latter. Machiavelli would never make that mistake. Politics should be guided by reality, not ideals. A dissimulator is not one who lies out of vanity, but one who protects their own position while reorganizing forces. Decisions based on real human nature punish those who expose weakness in public and reward those who know how to contain it. The end justifies the means here emerges as intelligent self-preservation. Showing weakness at the wrong time does not generate help. It generates loss of respect, and respect once lost rarely returns. Better to be feared than loved. At this stage means being seen as someone stable even under pressure. Avoiding being hated means not using dissimulation as a weapon against others, but as a personal shield. An appearance of virtue requires visible emotional constancy. A practical example: in times of financial crisis, reduce speech, maintain routine, preserve a basic appearance, and don't announce panic. In emotional crises, continue fulfilling commitments, even if silently. Virtue is self-restraint applied to chaos. Calculated use of force is knowing that external calm calms the environment, and calm environments generate trust. The common mistake is thinking that this dehumanizes. It doesn't dehumanize, it protects. One's own loyal armies don't follow someone in public collapse. Constant adaptability requires separating the space of reconstruction from the space of exhibition. Machiavelli would call this internal discipline. Those who learn to dissimulate correctly, buy time, preserve respect, and maintain access to resources. And when this art is mastered, an uncomfortable realization arises. By neglecting image and signaling, many people are not being authentic. They are, in fact, committing a silent violence against themselves. There is a silent form of self-destruction that almost no one recognizes, speaking ill of oneself without opening one's mouth. This is what happens when someone neglects their own image and calls it detachment or humility. Machiavelli would never confuse carelessness with virtue. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals. The way you present yourself to the world is a public declaration of the value you attribute to yourself. Decisions based on real human nature read signs, not hidden intentions. The end justifies the means here appears as self-preservation. If the world reads you as someone who doesn't take themselves seriously, it simply agrees with you. Better to be feared than loved, in this context, is to be respected as someone who protects themselves. Avoiding being hated begins with not provoking unintentional contempt. The appearance of virtue is not vanity, it is external integrity. A practical example, taking care of the basics every day, even when no one is watching. Clean clothes, proper posture, organized speech. This is not for others. It's to align body and mind. Virtue is coherence between who you say you are and what you show. Calculated use of force is understanding that image is not a mask when it reflects an intention for growth. Those who treat themselves as disposable teach the world to do the same. The common mistake is believing that inner worth is self-sustaining. It isn't. Self-sufficient and loyal armies need symbols to organize themselves. Constant adaptability demands updating how you present yourself as you evolve internally. Machiavelli would call chronic carelessness silent betrayal. When someone begins to align image with ambition, something changes in the world's response. And it is at this point that the most brutal law is fully revealed. The world doesn't move out of necessity, but through exchange. It doesn't help those in need, it helps those who can reciprocate. There is a silent law governing human relationships, money, opportunities, and power. The world operates through exchange, not compassion. This is the part that hurts, but liberates. Machiavelli never romanticized charity as the engine of history. Politics is guided by reality, not ideals. Those who present themselves as walking needs arouse momentary pity. Those who present themselves as potential value arouse lasting interest. Decisions based on real human nature follow this cold logic. The end justifies the means. Here means understanding that no one bets on those who only ask. People invest in those who can give something back, even if they are not yet giving it back. Better to be feared than loved in this final point is to be respected as someone who has room for negotiation. Avoiding being hated means not demanding something from the world that you cannot yet sustain. The appearance of virtue here is appearing capable of exchange, not dependence. A practical example: instead of asking for help, offer a partial solution. Instead of asking for an opportunity, present usefulness. Instead of exposing neediness, demonstrate preparedness. Virtue is building value before asking for something in return. Calculated use of force is knowing that the world responds better to those who position themselves as partners than as problems. The most common mistake is thinking the world is unjust for not helping. It's not unjust, it's functional. Loyal armies don't form around those who only consume resources. Constant adaptability requires migrating from the identity of beggar to the identity of agent. Machiavelli would call this a transition of state from subject to prince. When that key turns, everything that came before begins to make sense. Appearance, posture, silence, signaling, control. Because in the end, the world doesn't bow to those who beg. It bows to those who bear their own weight. Now the question that remains is uncomfortable, and precisely for that reason, it is powerful. What signals have you been emitting every day without realizing it? How does the world interpret you when you enter a room, ask for something, negotiate, take a stand, or simply remain silent? Because after everything that has been said here, one thing is clear: there is no neutrality. Either you control perception or you are controlled by it. Machiavelli made this explicit when he observed that decisions based on real human nature do not await explanations, they simply happen. Perhaps you'll realize that it's not a lack of ability that holds you back, but a lack of strategy, a lack of calculated use of force, a lack of understanding that the appearance of virtue is not falsehood, but intelligent survival. The world doesn't change because you are good, hardworking, or truthful. It changes when you position yourself as someone who can bear the consequences, offer reciprocity, and maintain control. It's better to be feared than loved, as long as you know how to avoid being hated. This balance is learned, not inherited. So here's the unsettling invitation. What will you adjust starting today? Your silence, your posture, your circle, your visual cues, your way of asking or of stopping asking. If you consciously apply just one of these ideas, you'll already be playing a game that most people don't even know exists. And if you want to continue learning to see the world as it really works, without romanticization, without illusions, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, the goal isn't to please you, it's to make you impossible to ignore.